Hello and a warm welcome to this special conversation. Well, a ceasefire is in place between India and Pakistan. But should we be breathing easy? Can we breathe easy? What happened to the specific strategic objective that we had set out to achieve in the first place? With me, one of India's foremost military strategists, well-known retired Vice Chief of the Indian Army, Gen Philip Campose, comes to our studio. Great pleasure as always to have you with us, sir.
Thank you, Bhupender, for having me on your show.
Let me straight away first begin by asking you, sir, since we spoke last, which was right at the peak of this conflict, people have been asking now post this ceasefire that all what we had set out to achieve, have we really achieved what we had set out to achieve courtesy the ceasefire?
Bhupender, to answer your question, we must first go back a little bit in what we've already discussed last time to see the context of what has happened in terms of this conflict over 3 or 4 days. Till 22nd of April last month, everything was peaceful. Tourists were going in their thousands to Kashmir. There was some sort of peace which was prevailing there. And then suddenly, on the afternoon of 22nd April, you have this incident in which terrorists attack and kill 26 tourists, male tourists, in front of their family members. That is where this whole thing has started. So why is it is important to understand that this is not an incident which happened in the midst of some sort of turmoil which was ongoing. So then we have to get down to the point that why exactly did this happen? Who was behind it? And that is why even last time I mentioned, very important to understand that the man who triggered this whole thing was the Pakistan Army Chief for whatever reason. Obviously, some personal inclinations or ambitions which are involved. But he's the one who triggered it, and he dog whistled the Pakistani assets, the deep state, in terms of the terror assets they have by his speech on the 16th. So what do we have? You have a chief of army staff who asks the terrorists to do something. The terrorists do something on 22nd. So now we have to look at things in this context.
Right.
So what is our strategic aim? There are a lot of people who have gone and said our strategic aim is to dismantle Pakistan and things like that. Now, if you go for that sort of exaggerated ideas, then you are missing the point. India does not want, as that we have all understood and the government has made it very clear, we are not in here for some sort of long haul where we are looking for an opportunity to start a war. We understand that we are two nuclear nations, and whatever happens will have a certain context to it, based on which the international community will be watching us very carefully. We've also got to look at the factor of escalation. And so to that extent, whatever we would do, which was explained very clearly on a number of briefings, that what we were going to do was going to be measured and targeted specifically to ensure that the people who were responsible for the terror incident on 22nd April at Pahalgam, they would be targeted, if not they individually, but at least the organizations which were responsible. And that measured, it was a very important part of what the message from the Indian government. It would be a measured, targeted approach in dealing with whatever had happened.
What I'm trying to understand now, sir, because there was a press conference that was done yesterday also. The foreign minister, Dr. Jaishankar, now is on record, making it very clear that if there is any such misadventure like Pahalgam, again, it would be considered an act of war against India. Now, help us understand this. We've struck at 9 locations at what we believe were terror-supporting infrastructure in Pakistan. We've knocked off at the military airports. Now we say that any further misdemeanor will be treated like war. Why should I not say that what was going on right now was also at the end of the day a war?
It was not really a war. You know, even if you look at, there was this briefing yesterday by the Director General Air Force Operations. They told you what they had done at the 11 airfields. if you saw, these were in the form of warnings. They were not destruction of the air bases. It was they took one facility in each of these air bases, whether it was a radar facility or some sort of hangar, and these were targeted. The intent being, one, to serve as a warning, and secondly, to let the person know that this is our capability. We can come and attack in a precise manner whichever target we want. So that was the message which was given. And like I said, we were being very, very careful that we were not escalating the situation. Okay. So while we are doing that, and very carefully in measured manner, in a calibrated manner, we are striking at targets, we have managed to achieve what we had to, because in an escalation situation like this, what we are trying to do is to convince the other party how to get off the escalation ladder. Otherwise, you can keep, you hit my targets, I will hit bigger targets, he will then hit bigger targets. But here you are trying to convince him to just stop it, because I can do much more damage to you than what you can do to me.
So there were two phrases which all of us heard a lot of in the last couple of days. One was off the ramp, and the other one is escalation dominance. Are we to say that Pakistan was gunning for taking this entire escalation off the ramp, and we were gunning for establishing our dominance on the escalation ladder?
See, in any situation like this, and we are both nuclear powers, so how the international community sees a conflict where two nuclear-armed parties are involved, they look at it from the escalation ladder point of view. And there are many versions of this ladder. Well-known one is the Khan's ladder with 44 different steps. Now, what happens in that is that each party is trying to strike and at the same time maintain that whatever he does, the other party will back off. Okay. So either party would like this episode to finish when they are in a dominant position, which is known as escalation dominance. So while you are escalating, my desire is that while I am on top, you should back off. And this backing off process is what is termed as getting off the ramp. So you are escalating, going up the ladder, and you want the other party to get off the ladder. Okay. So to that extent, I think India has achieved its aim, because the escalation was started by Pakistan. We have hit back on the 7th, being very careful. We have hit back, we've hit 9 targets, and these are all attributable to terrorism by Pakistan. So these 9 targets have been hit. They've been decimated as far as major assets within these targets. And now it was Pakistan who was threatening that they would escalate and hit harder. But that has not actually happened, because Pakistan was sending drones across, and these were all quadcopter drones which were unarmed. These 400 drones and 500 drones that we heard of. It was more in the terms of trying to find out what our response would be. So what would actually happen was mixed up at 1 or 2 places in where they had drones which were armed, possibly in Jammu and Pathankot. And they also wanted to see how we would react to that before they actually responded. But what we have done is, we have ensured that they got off the ramp and they did not respond. Actually, they have not responded to our attack of the 7th.
Why would that be, sir? Because on one hand, we were looking at what you and I have often spoken about is a maverick like the Pakistani Army Chief General Munir, who maybe wants to prove a point to his domestic constituency. In your understanding, this response that we were waiting for from Pakistan, why did that not happen? Is it incapability? Is it that they got scared? What happened?
There are 2 reasons, 2 very clear reasons which have become obvious in the last few days. One is that the realization by Pakistan that the military capabilities of India were were capable of getting through whatever air defense mechanism or protective mechanism they had in terms of these 11 strikes. Like I told you, they were not, you didn't decimate or destroy these airfields, but in each one a warning was given. Okay, that one hangar, one radar. So the message was very clear, military-wise, by the Indian Air Force and by whatever other means. I'm sure there were some other attacks also by drones. We have been using these Harop drones quite effectively. So the messaging was going on that we can get through your air defenses and hit you at will. So this is one, the military part of it. The second was the political part. And I tend to believe this part, that with the IMF negotiations going on for a bailout, on the 9th of May, the IMF negotiation for a bailout for Pakistan to be able to pay its loan, with that going on and the Americans being in control of the IMF, this was an opportunity they have used quite effectively, as I see it. And this has to be understood in the context that I don't think the political authority in Pakistan had a heart in this fight. I don't think any of them were behind this plan to go and hit tourists in Pahalgam. It is, that's why I said...
This was an individual-driven initiative of General Munir. So my counter question then, sir, who are we really trying to send a message to? If General Munir is a person in charge, in your assessment with whatever has happened, is he really getting the message? Is the Pakistani political authority being messaged? Who's getting what here?
See, there is a responsibility of the Pakistan state. Let's face it. They run all these terror camps. All these recruitments of terrorists takes place quite openly. The recruiting, the funding, the training, it's all happening very open. So to that extent, there is a general responsibility of the Pakistan state to be running these, developing and running these assets for whatever nefarious purposes. But in this particular case, we've also got a gentleman on whom this entire responsibility falls. Right from the beginning, we have seen on the 16th of April how he, in some talk, he started, brought on issues of Hindu-Muslim. He brought in issues of Kashmir being the jugular vein, and then you have this attack. So everybody knows it was some sort of dog whistle to these terror assets, both within Pakistan and in Kashmir, to sort of bring them together and carry out what they did on the 22nd. So we have been pointing at this gentleman, and I'm sure the country and the international community will have to do something about it. And that is why, if you see in the reporting that has taken place, the man they have spoken to from the United States, the man they have spoken to de-escalate and for the ceasefire is Asim Munir. In India's case, it would be a political authority they would have spoken to. Whereas in the case of Pakistan, they have spoken to Asim Munir because they are also now aware that this is the man who is actually responsible. So I think there will be follow-up action. After all, there's only a ceasefire that has happened.
Right.
We have still, the Indus Water Treaty is still held in abeyance.
From a strategic point of view, look at the sequence of events. The US President Donald Trump makes the announcements first, on his social media handle, which is then followed up by a conversation, by a press briefing by the Indian Foreign Secretary, and then finally from the Pakistani side. The fact that Trump wants to claim credit for this, even going to the extent of saying that I'll negotiate a settlement between India and Pakistan on Kashmir, I can be on the dialogue table, they can be on, on some third venue. Do you think in any way does it change the axis between India, Pakistan, or the Kashmir question?
Not really. As far as Mr. Trump is concerned, President Trump is concerned, he has done what I would say any US president would have done in the circumstances. Because, he wants to bring the Ukraine-Russia conflict to
and he wants to claim credit for it.
Yeah, that I suppose, being a politician, they will always want to claim credit. So he could not bring the Russia-Ukraine war to a close. He has also not really been able to bring the Gaza issue to a close. So to that extent, suddenly something popped up in front of him, the India-Pakistan sort of conflict or brinkmanship or shooting match or whatever they would have called it. And he would have seen that there was a possibility that he could stop this. And this is also a lot of importance and concern to the international community, because here you've got two nuclear-armed rivals. And to that extent, he would have realized that firstly, he felt he had the influence to intervene and stop it, which has happened. And he must have done it in that context. And they had an opportunity in that the IMF meeting was taking place, where Pakistan was under pressure.
Okay. Lastly, sir, you and I were, last time we spoke, you'd given us a lot of insights about the kind of ammunition which was used by the Indian state. There has been a lot of murmur about whether we use our bramos, domestically produced, in one of our attacks. What can you throw some light on it? Have we used the bramos?
I'm not sure at all, because the bramos is a very effective and a very accurate weapon. But from the photographs which have been shown in the media, I'm not at all sure whether the bramos has been used. And nobody has claimed it. From our side, we are only talking of strikes, missile hits, and those could be even munitions launched through drones. We've been talking about the Herop drones. So to that extent, I would not like to give any sort of opinion whether the bramos has been, because the military has not claimed it. And in my own sense, seeing the type of damage done at the assets in Pakistan, I'm not very sure if that is the type of damage that would happen if a bramos was to strike.
So finally, sir, to that initial question which I raised out of you, if I was to ask you straight up to tell our viewers, have we achieved the objective that we set out to achieve, what would your answer be, sir?
I would say we have, in the immediate context. Okay. Because, like I said, we would have set our aims very practical and measured, calibrated, because like I said, the moment you are a nuclear power, it also comes with some sense of responsibility that what you would do. And you can't raise the ante and you can't go up the escalation ladder too fast. So whatever we have done, it has been done in a very measured manner, very responsible manner. And I'm sure the international community would appreciate the way we have gone about it. But the issue that comes is it going to keep happening like this? Every few months, some guy in Pakistan gets an inclination and he triggers of something else. So that is why there is some qualification by us. While we talk of a ceasefire, we've qualified that the next time we are not going to go so deliberately up the escalation ladder. Okay. And we may go for something, we may skip quite a few steps of this ladder and
go straight up.
Go much higher. And that is the message that we are giving to the other side.
Okay. General Campose, thank you so much for joining us and coming over to our studios today.
Thank you.